I know you were 21 years old when you were sentenced to life in the California Department of Corrections. What was it like for you to be sentenced to life at 21 years old, bro?
Oh man, hey, thank you, Chad. You know what? It was like so surreal. It was like something I just like out of a movie. I couldn't even believe it was happening. It was like an outer body experience. I didn't even believe it was actually happening. I didn't.
Mark, what's up, man? I appreciate you coming on the show today. We're going to talk a little bit about you, a little bit about your life. I know you were 21 years old when you were sentenced to life in the California Department of Corrections. What was it like for you to be sentenced to life at 21 years old, bro?
Oh man, hey, thank you, Chad. You know what? It was like so surreal. It was like something I just like out of a movie. I couldn't even believe it was happening. It was like an outer body experience. I didn't even believe it was actually happening. I didn't even phase me. I was like, nah, this can't be happening. I'm only 21. There's no way.
So you're 21 years old, you're sentenced to life. People are probably thinking, damn, you're, 21, sentenced to life in California. How many people did this guy kill, right? Tell the
Right.
people why you were arrested and why you ended up with a life sentence.
So I was under the California three strikes law, and this was back in 1997, and they were just washing us all up for anything. And so I got arrested for arson. And a lot of guys in the county jail were like, "Oh hell no, they're going to do that to a white boy." They were like all the Southerners and the blacks were like thinking, "Damn, if they could do that to a white boy, what are they going to do to us?" So I ended up getting 125 years to life based on the fact that I have multiple counts. And then yeah, I was just dumbfounded, and I just had to just take it like a man and just accept it, and then it's like, man, I messed up. And it's just being that young, I really didn't dawn on me. It just didn't absorb like it would in my older years, now. But back then, I just didn't think about consequences or responsibility or the life that I wanted for myself.
You're 21 years old and you're on your way to prison in California for life, right? 125 years of life means life. You're not going to see the parole board, right? And for 125 years, is that what it is?
Exactly. That's how it works on the three strikes law. That's exactly how it is. Anything you got before the L, that's how much time you're doing. Back then, it was 100%. You're doing 100% of the years before you even start your life sentence.
So walking into California State Prison, white dude, life sentence. What are you thinking in your mind? Are you thinking, damn, I'm going to have to become a gang member? I'm sure you've heard about the Aryan Brotherhood in California, Nazi lowriders back then, probably. What are you thinking in your head?
Yeah, I'm thinking, you know what? This is going to be bad. I know I'm going to a high security prison. I don't know where I'm going. And I'm like, yeah, I've always, heard all the horror stories, watched all the movies like American Me and Blood In and Blood Out. I'm thinking, oh man, it's really like that in there. And so that's the first thing I'm thinking. How am I going to survive? How am I going to make it?
When you get there, what's your first state prison in California?
So the first place I went to was Chino, actually, for a diagnostic study, and that was for like 90 days. And then after that, I was sentenced. When I was sentenced by the judge, they sent me to Delano for my reception. And then after that, I went to Lancaster Level 4 in 1999.
1999, walking into Lancaster. Do the white dudes approach you immediately? Like, hey, what's up, Wood?
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, when I hit the yard, they were all over the fence. Everybody was watching all the new fish on the fence. They're all checking us out. And I'm not gonna lie, I was scared. My heart was beating, but I was trying to show, like, hey man, I can't be intimidated. But the way I look back then, I looked like a little kid. I didn't have a hair on my face, and I wasn't scaring nobody. So I mean, I was scared, but I was trying not to show no fear. But deep inside, yeah, I was scared. I'll admit it.
So now you walk on the compound after you walk by the fence, right? You get into a unit. What's it like for you when you get into the unit? Now you're face to face. There is no fence in between you and the white dudes. What's it like?
Yeah, it was very electrifying. You could feel the tension, literally on the yard. You could feel the evil the evilness that's on the yard. You're surrounded by killers. You're surrounded by people that are never going home, people that have done, the unthinkable. And yeah, the whites approached me very quickly, and a couple guys pulled me to the side and started schooling me and telling me, where I got to go, and you know, I'm going to be up in one of the cells in the reception center part of the one of the units. I'm going to be in there for like 15 days until they clear me for the yard. And then guys came by, fellas came by and checked my paperwork. I made sure I brought my paperwork with me, and so that way I'm good for the yard.
So you got a life sentence. They see the paperwork. Anybody trying to tip you up, like, hey, bro, you get down with us, anything like that?
Yeah, basically, just some of the white reps came over and schooled me, and they say, "Hey, look, we know you're a youngster. You're a first termer, so this is how it goes in here, man. Don't be doing this. Don't be eating after the blacks. Don't be, smoking after the blacks. Don't be doing any drugs. Don't do any homosexual activity. Don't get in debt. Don't gamble." And of course, I never did any of that stuff anyway, and I never drank or smoked or, did any drugs, so I didn't have that problem. So I did what they said. I mean, I took that advice very, very real.
You talk a little bit about the racial politics in California. Don't eat after the blacks. Are you allowed to buy products from the blacks or anything like that?
Certain prisons they get a little lenient, but for the most part, high security level 4, 180 yards, 270, it's like a no-no. It depends, like especially like if it's food. Yeah, there's definitely no food happening. But the funny thing is, you got a lot of things that are going on in there that I find kind of hypocritical. Uh, it's really strange, and I'm sure you've heard about this before, where you know the fellas tell you not to eat after a certain race, but yet at the same time they're over there getting dope out of the black man's ass, or you know, it's like wait a minute, but you just told me don't eat after the blacks. This is all the kind of stuff that's running through my head when I'm a youngster, and I'm thinking, when I'm seeing all this for the first time, I'm like, but that dude just contradicted himself. They just said don't be doing this, don't be doing that, don't be sharing anything, don't be congregating with them and hanging out with them on the yard and stuff like that. You can say hi in passing and show respect like you're supposed to. Every man is should be treated equal, because we're all in there together. But to see guys doing like drug transactions and going to visits and getting dope from visits, and yet it's coming from another race, from their wife or their girlfriend or whatever, and then turn around, take that back to the house, back to the unit, and then take it out of their ass, after it just came out of the other family member's ass who was another race. I'm like, damn, this is crazy. I'm like, I don't get it. I ask questions sometimes, but I just kind of kept it to myself too. I kept it low profile about what was going on. I'm just like, so that's what really goes on in here. It's like, I thought you're supposed to keep it real. You don't mess around. Period. And that's what I was taught. That's what I was told. But yet I saw other things happening, so I was just like confused.
You never become a white gang member in prison, right?
No, I never did.
Ever really approached to become one?
No, just that, a lot of the fellas, I knew a lot of the shot callers, a lot of the building reps, got along with them. Just I kept myself busy, and a lot of them, believe it or not, they looked out for me. I mean, they were like, "Hey, you know what, youngster man, you really don't belong in here, man." He goes, "You look like a clean cut kid that just made some mistakes. We know what you did, and we want to see you do good. So just don't fuck up, don't mess up. Stick to the rules, stick to what we're talking about." He goes, "But when we do need you, make sure you're there." And I told him, "Yeah, anytime something goes down on the yard, I'll be there. And I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to, be a coward. I'll be there." But for the most part, I just try to immerse myself in school, vocational trades. Picked a few fellas to hang around with, the guys that were really trying to better themselves, that wanted to get out, even though we didn't have an end. It's like, but we still try to hold on to that hope. So basically, I just try to find a few guys that were on the same wavelength as I was, and we're fighting our appeals. And that's what we, emerged ourselves into, was just fighting the legal battle, on appeal. and that's what kept us busy and kept us away from all the gang stuff.
You know, a lot of the gang stuff, racially segregated over there, right?
Right. Yeah, big time.
When you're over there, the whites and the Mexicans stick together, or no?
At one time it was like real unity between the Southerners and the whites. It was like, we got your back, they got our back. Anything goes down between, uh, us and the blacks or them and the blacks, we would take care of it. Or sometimes they'd say, hey, look, we got this. This is just between us and them. And there were times that would happen, that the whites would join forces with the Southerners, and and join their battle. But then it started getting kind of weird later on, where we had some separation. I guess it just depends on what prison you're at. Some are real hardcore, level 4, 180 yards, which I've never been on. I just been to a 270, and it was a thing where Southerners, whites, Paisas, Native Americans hung out together on one side of the day room, like on a 270, and then of course the others and the blacks were on the other side of the day room, and so that's pretty much how they segregated everybody.
Say the others. Tell the people what the others are.
Yeah, so the others are people made up of like islanders, like Samoans, people from like Asians, pretty much. And there are other type of others, like people from South America, but they wouldn't be over there on that side. They would be with the Paisas, so they would still be considered a Paisa, somebody from Mexico or Central America or South America, and some of them would still be down as another, but yet they wouldn't be actually associating with like the blacks or something like that, or they'd still be kind of like, the Southerners wouldn't really tell them how to run their program, because that's them. The others, they do their thing. But yeah, the others were, for the most part, were mostly Asian, like Cambodian, uh, Chinese, or we had mostly like Vietnamese and Cambodian, gangs in California, and a little bit of Samoans too.
Most dangerous gang in the California prison system.
Man, I'll tell you, the Southerners are pretty hardcore, and the whites are pretty hardcore. The AB, uh, these guys are no joke. I mean, they're really no joke. The Southerners, the big fellas, the big four, as they call it, that were locked away in the shoe at one time for decades, and then were finally released out on a lawsuit that was done many years ago. So the whites and the Southerners and the Northern Mexicans they're the most hardcore, that I can speak of, that I personally witnessed their brutality.
You
And
say you personally witnessed brutality, right? Tell me
right.
some of the stuff that you've actually witnessed in the California Department of Corrections that was just absolutely brutal, at least in your mind.
Well, I was on the yard one day. This is at Lancaster. This is back in 1999, just before Christmas, and our yard on C Yard at the time was still GP, and it had a separation down the center. It was a fence. There's a fence line going through the front of the program office, and then a center fence going that divided the yard. So buildings 3, 4, and 5 would be on the north side of the yard, and buildings 1 and 2 would be on the south side of the yard. So I'm out walking around on the track, doing my thing, exercising, and then all of a sudden I catch something over to my left, and I see this OG. I don't know if he was a Southerner. He might have been a Southerner. Most likely, he probably was. And I just looked at him, and I'm like, "Damn, is that really happening?" The man is holding his neck. I see he's in trouble. He's in distress. And then all of a sudden, his white T-shirt turns crimson red. I mean, all the way down within seconds. And I said, "Oh man, this guy he's not doing too good." And he starts stumbling. He gets to the fence. He opens the gate. He tries to make it to medical, and down he went. And he died right there. And all I could see was the blood squirting out of his jugular from like about 50 yards away. And I could just see it. And he went from being dark complected to literally like a ghost. I mean, it was the craziest thing I had ever seen. I'd never seen somebody get murdered before. That was the first time. That will always be with me for the rest of my life. It's always playing like a tape in my head.
You were only 21 years old at the time that you see this.
I was 23 at this time.
23 years old, you see that, you say you'll never forget about it. When you go lay in your cell that night, what do you, if you can remember back then, what are you thinking in your mind? Are you just like, wow, man, this is my life?
Yeah, this was telling me, you know what, this is it. This is the real deal. And I'm like, wow, man, I just can't believe it. The guy just got his life taken just like that. Start thinking about his family. Like, man, did he have kids? Did he have a wife? I found out later on he was going home in 6 months. And I was like, damn, he never made it out. So I don't know what his infraction was, but it was serious. And they weren't playing. You know, they really were serious about, you know, their business, and whatever he did, whatever his infraction was, he had to go. And that just goes to show, and what I was thinking back then, like, man, life is really precious. It could be taken just like that. This is no joke.
Life could be taken just like that for nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about the white dudes, because you talk about, the AB and dudes like that, pretty brutal, pretty vicious. What's one of the worst things you've seen the white dudes doing at California Department of Corrections?
I've seen many 2-on-1s, one-on-one removals, uh, multiple. Always either they're always making a statement. The whites make a statement. When they want to do something, they want to make sure the whole yard knows that we're serious. And I've seen so many guys getting taken out, guys getting liver shots with the shank, kidney shots, neck shots. I've seen one guy where he did some kind of a homosexual act on the yard. It was the craziest thing. He must have been high on meth or something, because I didn't know this man to be doing something like this. And they waited for that dude to come in on the yard, and they said, man, this dude's got to go, man. He committed a homosexual act on the yard. I mean, literally through the fence. And he was over here sucking this guy's dick through the fence. I don't know what that was all about. That's some crazy shit. That's not supposed to be tolerated. And sure enough, they got him. As soon as he walked inside the rotunda inside of our building, they were waiting for him right there. They laid his neck wide open. And at first it was like, damn, he's not bleeding. And then all of a sudden, just boom, it just started pouring out of his neck. He was lucky to still be alive. I don't know how the man survived, but I mean, they got him really good. And I mean, that's just one example of many that I had seen where the whites just, they don't play around, man. They go for the jugular, literally.
I guess so, right?
Yeah.
And, as far as being in prison all them years, right? How much time did you do total?
I did 23 years total.
So you do 23 years in the California Department of Corrections. You end up with life. We'll talk about how you get out in a minute. But while you're there, man, there's a lot of stuff where we hear about California and race this and race that. Are you ever involved in any type of race riots over there?
Believe it or not, this is hard to believe, but I was actually able to somehow avoid, most of the confrontations, most of the riots that happened. I was either out to court, or we were locked in our building, or I might have been at work or at church. But for some reason, somehow I was able to avoid. I mean, I'd seen things happen, over like looking out through the window, like on another yard, where the whites and the Southerners or the whites and the blacks got into it. I mean, in another yard, because Lancaster had 4 yards at the time, and it was like, I don't know how. The only time I had ever been in a riot was in the county jail, and that was when I first got arrested, and that was the whites and the Southerners against the blacks, and that was pretty crazy. But yeah,
Talk about that. Why are the whites and the Southerners fighting the blacks in the county jail?
yeah. So in the county jail, we stuck together a lot more. The LA County Jail, it was more unity in there, and that you talk about crazy. The LA County Jail is worse than any prison I've ever seen. I mean, it's true what they say. If you can make it out through the county jail, the LA County Jail, you're going to be fine. If you can survive that, you can survive anywhere in CDC, because it's really, really violent. It's a very dark place. And so, yeah, a lot the riot that we had, I was at this county jail, which is, a part of LA County Jail. It was the LA County Jail is so big, it fits over 20,000 inmates. And so I was at this place called Linwood, and before they turn it into a woman's prison or a woman's jail, This is back in 1998, I believe, when I got transferred from the main central jail over to Linwood because my case was out of Long Beach. So I just remember one day I was up on my rack. It's on the second story. It was in a large pod. It had held like 300 people, and I remember hearing some kind of a snap, just a real loud bam, and I said, "Damn, what was that?" Then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. Chairs, tables, everything was getting turned over, thrown. It looked like a Jerry Springer show when he got the chair thrown. It was crazy, man. There was chairs going everywhere, people jumping off tiers, and I'm over there on the top tier, like, what's up, man? Like, and then some of the Southerners are like, let's go, Wood, let's go, like that. You're with us, man. And so they're downstairs and they're just going at it, and then all of a sudden, here comes the LA County Sheriff's deputies, who are like the worst of the worst. I mean, these guys are no joke. They will break your face. They will beat you down. They will break your arms. They don't care. They came in there with Big Bertha and they just started blasting us. I mean, it was covered in pepper spray, pepper balls. I mean, you name it. I mean, it was chaos. And I'm not sure what the disagreement was over, but one of the blacks had punched one of the Southerners in the face and broke his jaw. So it was, and then that's when it kicked off.
Was there ever a time in jail or prison, maybe that incident, where you're kind of like you're scared, like, damn, man, I could lose my life right now?
Yeah, in the beginning, I mean, my heart would be like almost out of my chest because I was new to this environment. I had never been in this kind of situation before. But what I noticed about myself as the years went on, I never thought it would happen to me, but I actually started becoming desensitized to violence. Where when I saw somebody get stabbed or beat down, I'd just be like, oh, okay. But in the beginning, oh my God, oh my God, I'd freak out, but I wouldn't try to cause a scene because you can't do that. You can't get all, jumpy and, front these people off that are, doing what they got to do. So I just walk away, but my heart is pounding in my chest. I mean, just like it's going to come right out. But I noticed that over time, the more I saw, the less I was affected by it. It was like, oh, okay, like a walk in the park. Like, oh yeah, there goes a guy getting killed, or there goes a guy getting, beat down 3-on-1, whatever. And I just say, glad it's not me.
Glad it's not me. White politics, right? We talked a little bit in the beginning about white politics. The white politics in prison are pretty much, hey, man, stick with your own, the rules that you laid out in the beginning.
Right.
But, sometimes it's kind of like an oxymoron, like you said, they tell you can't eat after this guy, but yet they're buying dope from this guy. What did you think about the white politics as the years went by?
You know what? There was a lot of scandalous stuff going on, a lot of backstabbing, a lot of, just, when drugs gets involved in politics, it really causes a lot of problems. And that's why I stayed away from it. I mean, I did my own thing, but I didn't want to be involved in what they got going on. That's their business, even though it's technically my business too. But yeah, it's like, man, I've seen a lot of scandalous stuff, dudes, talking about dudes behind their backs, and so said so and to so and so over here, and it's like, and doing this deal where the one thing I saw a lot with the whites, and other races did it too, but with the whites in particular, is there'd be a lot of dudes co-signing for other guys for dope, and just, oh man, that's like one of the worst things, because then when the dude doesn't, his word's no good, or he can't come through, and this guy gets rolled up, or he PCs up or whatever. Now this guy owes the money, because he said, "Oh yeah, I'll co-sign for him," and it was just like it was constant, treachery and backstabbing, and people were just like not true to themselves and not true to each other. When it came to politics, it was like the next guy wanted to be that guy, and they were willing to take out the next guy or that shot caller or find something, on him to where they could get in his shoes. And I was just like, man, I mean, it didn't happen everywhere, but I seen it happen at certain institutions. I was like, damn, this is crazy.
So you kind of see dudes kind of pushing the envelope to get rid of somebody, right? Because they want their position.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. That was weird, man. I'm cool.
Mark, where'd you grow up at, Mark?
I grew up in Long Beach.
So you grew up in Long Beach. What was your life like growing up, though, as a kid? What were your parents like?
Well, my biological father left when I was 2 years old, so I never really got to know him. I have a vague memory of him. And then I had a stepdad who was uh, alcoholic. He had two kids from a previous marriage. They were pretty cool and everything, but my mom's just like, man, he drinks a lot. He's gone a lot working. So they got divorced. And then a couple years later, my mom met my stepdad that I still have in my life today, and he's been with me since I was 5 years old. But there was a lot of drinking there too. There's a lot of stuff going on between him and my mom. A lot of arguments, a lot of, fighting and things like that. And I'm an only child, so I absorbed all this, and just seen a lot of things going on there, and a lot of trauma. But growing up here in Long Beach, I mean, it's a multi diverse culture here. There's a lot of different people here, and a lot of gangs, lots of gangs. Every kind of gang you could think of is here in Long Beach. And so I grew up with a lot of gangs, a lot of violence. I live literally between two separate housing projects. So everything that goes on around here is the ghetto bird is up all the time, constantly around the clock. We have three birds up at one time. Always
So
looking.
you got three helicopters flying around all the time. Hard to
Yeah,
sleep at night?
yeah. I got used to it, but sometimes they'll buzz the house. They're literally buzz the house where the house is vibrating because of the chopper from the blades. They're flying so low, 100 feet off the ground sometimes. And I'm
What
like,
did your what did your mom do for a living?
my mom worked for a large company that she was executive secretary for a large company for like 30 years.
You get sentenced to life at 21 years old. Does it affect your mother?
Yeah, it devastated her. I know it really hurt her a lot, and my stepdad too. They were always there for me, even though we had our little problems and stuff going, with things in the past and all that. They were always there for me, and I know they love me. And boy, I really hurt them a lot. This really devastated them. Really,
What was the hardest part about prison for you?
man, for me, uh, not being able to do anything for myself, not being able to be in control, not being able to make choices, um, you know, not being able to be there for my family. Uh, you know, couldn't be with a woman, wasn't allowed to be with a woman at all. I mean, I could get a contact visit like through regular visiting, but wasn't allowed to, make love to a woman, wasn't allowed to do anything. And so just all those things combined, losing your freedom, being told what to do every single day, being told when to get up, being told when to go to sleep, like, lights out at this time. And it's like, man, we got to do this every day, and just thinking about my parents, thinking about my family, and all the family members that I lost, um, from the time I was incarcerated to the time I got out. It's really tough.
What about, you talked about you could have, contact visits. I mean, during that time, did you ever have a girlfriend? You see a lot of dudes on Write a Prisoner, Friends Beyond the Wall. Dudes get chicks to come visit them. Some dudes meet chicks through church groups or, when outside members come in. Anything like that ever happen for you?
I actually did. There were some times where I had like my ex girlfriend. She was keeping in touch with me because I was engaged to her at the time this happened. So she stayed in touch with me, but she went out and did her thing, and I knew that was going to happen because she was young, I was young, and so I did do some pen pal, Christian pen pal stuff. Was able to like write people around the world, and got to know some people from all over the world. So that kind of kept me busy. I had a woman come in to see me, but she was a lot older than me at the time, so it was kind of a weird situation because it just it wasn't really right. But we ended up being friends for a little while. Then we kind of broke contact. But yeah, for the most part, all those years, I said to myself, I don't want to have the problems that a lot of these guys do, where they're sitting there wondering what their old lady's up to. Oh, what is she doing right now? Who's she talking to? I didn't want to have that problem, so I said, you know what? I'm just going to remain, just be alone, do my thing, and try to get out of prison.
And eventually you do get out of prison. Tell the people how you get out.
So we had this proposition called Prop 57 that passed in, I think, 2016, and at first it wasn't going to help any of the lifers. And we're like, damn, man, what are we going to do? So a lot of guys were like, Well, we're going to have to push, man. We're going to have to do something to get us, you know, incorporated in that law. We've got to figure out a way to get it to apply to us. And sure enough, guys, fought tooth and nail, and then they got nonviolent three strikers to be a part of the early release plan. But the only thing for the nonviolent three strikers is we have to actually go in front of a board. So in 2019, I ended up getting a psych eval, which is required. Had to see a doctor. He had to clear me. I received a low on my evaluation, which was the best you can do. And then 3 months later, I ended up seeing the parole board in February 2020, and a miracle. I mean, it was a lot of work doing a relapse prevention plan, parole plans, letters of recommendation, transitional house approvals. I mean, everything had to be lined up. Letters from family, friends, you name it. And I went in there and I just said, okay, let's do this, and it was a miracle, man. They let me go. They approved me in about 2.5 hours.
Let's talk about that for a minute, right? You're sitting in front of the parole board. Your life is literally on the line. You got to you got a record of doing the right thing in prison, but you kind of got to talk your way out of prison, right, in front of those people.
Yeah, you really do. You got to explain your actions. You got to explain your past, explain why you did this, how you're not going to do it again. You really have to show a lot of remorse, because I did have multiple victims, as far as financial, with all the fires that I had set to property and things like that. So yeah, I definitely had to be accountable. I had to have insight, which is one of the huge things that the parole board looks for, was insight.
So you're sitting in front of them. Are they grilling you a little bit?
They're just a little bit. They weren't doing too bad. I was the first guy in there. They did 3 people that day. I was the first one in, 8 a.m. And you know what? They were not as bad as I thought they were going to be. I really thought they were going to be tough on me, but it was kind of like they were walking me through. It's like some guys had explained to me, old lifers had said, look, Mark, you'll know the signs when, if the board's getting really hard on you, it's a 50-50. But if they're walking you through and they're being cool to you, man, you got a really good shot. And so, but I was able to answer their questions, but I'll be honest, I was really nervous. I looked at my transcripts and there was a lot of all over the transcripts. I mean, I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe I was talking like that, because I was so nervous and so scared. I mean, my face was beet red the whole time I was in there, because I was just, I was just, my blood pressure was probably through the roof, because I know my life was in their hands.
Your life was in their hands. Did they let you know that day, like, hey, we're going to let you go?
Yeah, they did. So they adjourned after 2.5 hours. And then I went in the little holding cell for just, must have only been like maybe 15 minutes, but it seemed like eternity. And my attorney comes in there and she says, hey, you did a great job. You did a great job in there. Trust me. The way you presented yourself, you brought the packets to them. You made copies for them. They see that you've accomplished a lot in here. I didn't have any disciplinary history, believe it or not, even though they know I got in trouble. They're not stupid. They know that nobody is perfect in prison. It's just not going to happen. And I've had a few problems and things, and then I admitted to past crimes. I told him, I says, Commissioner, I want to just come clean today, and I want to let you know that there's crimes that I was not convicted of on this case, that I wanted you to know I'm responsible for those. And that was another big thing that weighed a lot on them. They said, hey, you know what? We really appreciate your honesty. Thank you for telling us that. And so when they adjourned for their decision, there's 2 parole board members, by the way, a commissioner and a deputy commissioner. And then they came back, and I was like, oh my God, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? And they're going through the whole spill. This is a formality that they have to go through. And like maybe 10, 15 minutes into their spill, they say, we hereby find you suitable for parole. And I was like, oh my God, did they really just say that? And it's like, it just washed over me like a wave. I was like, I looked at my attorney, did they just say that? And I was like, I didn't know what to say. Did I say thank you? Do I, I didn't want to show too much emotion, because it was all, I was just totally ecstatic.
You went from life to having a second chance. How long before you actually walk out of prison after you get that decision?
So unfortunately, the way California does it now, since I didn't have a body, I didn't have a murder, I had to wait 4 months to be cleared. So the decision goes to the Sacramento, and then they do an in-bank hearing. Luckily, I didn't get an in-bank hearing where they could take you back to the board and say, okay, look, we don't agree, and not everybody was in agreement. At the top at Sacramento, which is where all the commissioners and deputy commissioners get together. So I didn't have to worry about that. So they said, nope, he's approved, he's good to go, but you got to wait 4 months. And I was like, oh my God, 4 months. And a regular lifer, like somebody that has a murder case, they got to go in front of the governor. So they got to wait 5 months to be approved, and the governor has the last say so. But since I didn't have that, mine was a property crime, I only had to wait 4 months, but it was the longest 4 months of my life, let me tell you.
So you walk out of prison. How old are you when you do finally walk out?
I'm 44 years old when I finally get released.
And how long ago was that?
So that was a little over 4.5 years ago.
So 4.5 years ago, you walk out of prison. Where are you going? Is your family around still? I mean, what's going on?
Yeah. So my stepdad couldn't accompany me at that time because COVID was in full swing. And so my mom was able to come up and pick me up. So when that van took me and my partner out and dropped us off at the gate, as I saw my mom right there, and I could see she was a nervous wreck, but she was excited. And I jumped out of the van, and man, I couldn't believe it. I put my feet on the ground and I ran up to my mom, gave her a big hug, and I said, "Oh wow, this is just unbelievable. I'm hugging my mom for the first time in years, and now I don't have to let go."
What are your plans when you walk out as far as work and things like that?
So I had to go to a transitional house. So I thought, okay, we get to the transitional house. I have parole plans that I have to follow. And so I'm like, okay, got to get a driver's license, got to do this, got to do that, ID card, social security card, look for work. But during COVID, we really couldn't do much. We had to just kick back in the house. We didn't get to get out very much for the first couple months. And it was kind of hard because you're seeing freedom right there. But the house was beautiful. I mean, this transitional house was $1 million home with a swimming pool. We had full weight rack, everything. The backyard was like almost 300 feet long by 100 and something feet wide. This place was huge, and it was just beautiful. It was great. I was in there with 15 other guys, and all of us were lifers. And so couldn't do anything for a minute, but we had like programs where we had to be taken by the person that was running the program, and she would take us to these various programs that we had to be a part of, and then the parole officer would come and pay me a visit twice a month.
How long before you get out of the transitional housing?
So it took 6 months. So I was out by December 11th, 2020.
And what are your personal goals? Are you like, man, I want to meet a chick, I want to have a son someday, I want to get married? What are your personal goals?
Yeah, you know what? I just, because of COVID still going on and everything, I was like, damn, when am I going to meet a chick? That was, I'm not going to lie. I want to see my family first and foremost. And then I was like, yeah, it's time to get laid. It's time to have some fun. I'm just like, but I couldn't because COVID, it was so bad that everybody was like, oh, hell no, I'm keeping my distance. I mean, I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I get out after all these years and I can't even get laid. And I'm like, because everybody's just like scared, and I understand. And then finally, like 2021, I finally started having some fun. I mean, it took a long time, and I just couldn't control my man. I was just from one chick to another. I mean, it was crazy. I was just wanting to hang out and meet girls and and talk and actually have a conversation with one because I wasn't allowed to for all those years. So I was kind of like socially inept, if you want to call it. I didn't know what to say really. I didn't know how to approach him. I was shy again, like I'd never been around one. And it was so weird, but I finally got to have fun, but it took a long time. But the thing is, I didn't put my goals, the main goals first. That's the one thing that I want to get a message out, is my priorities were all messed up. I didn't follow those parole plans like I should have. I didn't follow that relapse prevention plan like I should have. That stuff went all in my box and into my closet. And I pulled it out maybe once or twice, and like in a couple years, just looking at it.
I always say this, right? I went to prison young too at 24, right? Stayed there for over 17 years. But when you're young and you go to prison, I used to say, and I still say this, that I feel like we grow physically, but a lot of times we don't grow mentally. Do you feel like you were still a kid? Did you feel like you didn't grow mentally?
That's exactly that. You nailed it. I felt like I was 21 again. I said, man, I can do everything I did when I was 21. And so like I was reliving my youth all over again because I had lost all those years. So I'm out here, I'm buying a scooter, I'm buying BMX bikes, you know what I mean? Because I'm still jumping curbs and doing all this stuff, and I know I can skate still. And I'm just like I'm trying to relive those years that were taken. So I'm acting very immature, very irresponsible, spending all my money, tens of thousands of dollars gone. I mean, I every time I got a paycheck when I finally started working, it was gone. I mean, I just spent it. I never saved it. Maybe it'd last a month or two and then it'd be gone.
Man, I mean, a lot of people don't understand that that's the reality. You go to prison young and you stay young mentally, maybe not physically, but definitely mentally. So now that you're out, you've been out, what are you doing now in your life?
Well, I'm still struggling. I'm still having problems. And unfortunately, because of the way I was acting, because I was being so irresponsible and the mentality that I brought out with me, still thinking that I'm a kid and still thinking I'm young, I went and, did something really dumb and started exploring on the internet because I'd never seen the internet before. I'd never had a cell phone. So I had to learn all this stuff and learn how to use it and all this new technology. So I get on the internet and I'm going crazy. I'm looking up everything. I don't know how it happened, but I end up coming across laser pointers. And I'm like, oh man, these things are pretty cool. And I'm like, I got to get one. So I'm like, well, I want the best one. I just don't want anyone. I want the best one they got. And because it looks like literally like something out of Star Wars, like a lightsaber. I mean, this thing is so bright and it goes so far. I was just totally baffled. So I'm like, I got to have it. And so I end up buying one. And I live in the city. I don't live out in the woods. I don't live out in the desert. And I'm like, oh, let's just point it around, and see how it hits the clouds. And I'm just like, oh my God, it hits the clouds. You can see it literally hit the clouds. So I'm like, wow, this thing is amazing. So I start pointing at trees across the street, buildings. And then next thing you know, I'm like getting curious and I'm thinking, I wonder if I could hit that helicopter from all the way, from my house to wherever it's at. It's several miles away. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was a police helicopter. I thought it was just a regular maybe news helicopter or whatever. And turns out it was Fox 2, which is our Long Beach police helicopter. And I'm like, "Oh shit." And sure enough, they come over the house, they come over in the area and they put on their big old searchlight and they're looking around. And my heart is just pounding. I was like, "Oh my God, the adrenaline rush, the excitement." But I was also scared to death at the same time. So I'm experiencing all these emotions. And then I don't know, a couple weeks later, I end up doing it again. And again, here comes the helicopter. This time they got me. I mean, I had already been playing with the laser for a long time, shining it in the air. So I guess they had been seeing this. They've been doing surveillance on me. They had seen the laser coming from my backyard, coming from my front yard, and they got me. They got me dead bang. And all I hear is a siren going off in my front yard. And I hear my mom go, oh my God, they're here. And I'm like, what? What do you mean they're here? And I rush into my bedroom from the backyard. My mom goes, the cops, there's cops all out in front of the house. And I'm like, oh shit. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm screwed. So I'm sitting there going, what am I going to do with this laser? Oh God, I got to hide it. I got to do something with it. And I'm like, I can't, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. So I put it back in the case and I just throw it in my closet. I'm like, that's it. I give up. I'm done. It's over. And my poor mom is out on the front porch getting her hand, they're telling her to put her hands up over her head and they got guns pointed at my mom. And I'm like, oh my God. And then they realize it's my mom. They just tell her to step off the porch, come down here with us. They're like, where's your son? Where's Mark? And I come out immediately with hands up. I know the routine. So I come out. They got guns all over me. There's about 12 to 15 officers. And then the helicopter that I hit with the laser, he's right above the house. He's got the light on me. And it's like something out of a movie. I mean, and everybody in the whole neighborhood's coming out. This is really embarrassing, very shameful. because now everybody's looking at me. Everybody's going, oh my God, what did this guy do? And so I get cuffed up. I get put in the back of a squad car for a little bit. And then one of the cops comes back and says, hey, check it out. So we're not the lead investigators on this. The FBI is. And I'm like, oh my God. They go, yeah, this is an FBI matter now. And they'll be here in a little bit to see you. And I was like, whew. And I just kept praying. I'm like, oh God, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean any harm. And then here they come. And you know what? I gotta hand it to it. The FBI, I never seen law enforcement like them before. They're very professional, at least for me. They were very courteous, respectful. They didn't raise their voice. They just talked. They get down to business. And I was surprised. I was very surprised at that. And they told the cops, take the cuffs off them. We just want to talk to them. Sat me down, and we just talked, about what had happened. I was denying it for the longest time because I was scared. I was like, man, I'm not going to confess to something that's going to get me God knows how many years in prison. And then they're like, look, Mark, the federal judge signed off on this warrant, and what he wants is that laser. That's what we're here for. Just give us the laser, and let's be done with this. And stupid me, of course, but I didn't want my mom and dad's house wrecked either. And I'm like, I'm done, man. Here it is, man. It's in my room. And they're like, okay, hey, we appreciate that, man. Thanks. Well, I was surprised. The cops were already talking about dropping charges. I was like, wow, they're already talking like we haven't even gone to jail yet. And so I guess the cops, I guess the FBI must have told them, hey, look, this is our case now. And so thank God the state dropped the charges, and the FBI ended up picking it up, which I know is still not a good thing, but the state is so much worse. I mean, it's just a bad thing. And so thankfully that happened. I got a parole violation. I was very fortunate not to have to go back to prison on the parole violation. I did, it was 160 days. I only did 62 days on that. I got released, and what ended up happening was a really strange thing happened. The FBI came to pay me a visit in the county jail. What happened was I got called out for a medical visit, and the deputies were like, yeah, you got a medical visit, just going to do a physical or something. I'm thinking, okay. As soon as the deputy put me on the wall, put me in handcuffs, I'm thinking, why do I got handcuffs? He goes, oh, because you got to go outside of the facility. Okay. As soon as he put those handcuffs on me, oh, by the way, and he leans over my shoulder, the FBI is here to see you. I said, oh, man, you tricked me, man. I said, and then man, he goes, oh, man, you must have done something pretty bad, man. The FBI wants to see you. So I go over there to this office. They close the door behind me. They take the cuffs off me. It's the same two agents that had arrested me. And they said, all right, Mark, I know you're probably surprised to see us, but look, we're here to just let you know that we're going to arrest you for, that we're going to arrest you for, these 2 counts of pointing a laser at a police helicopter. I said, yeah, I kind of figured that, And he says, well, the state has dropped the charges. We're picking them up, and we're going to come get you when you're released. So I'm like, all right. And they said, when's your release? And I said, well, April Fool's Day of all days. He said, all right, we'll be here to pick you up. And then, so they leave. I go back to the unit, tell all the fellows what happened. Everybody's talking, oh my God, Mark's arrested by the FBI, so they're making a big old thing out of it. And then my day comes, it's getting closer. And I start writing records, and I ask them, hey, what's happening with my release? I wanted to just check and see if I was going to get an early kickout, because usually parole violators get early kickouts. Sure enough, they were saying, well, we don't see anything here yet. And then all of a sudden, March 21st comes, and there's a release for me. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting out this much, like almost 2 weeks early. And I tell my mom and dad, hey, they're letting me out early. And so mom and dad come and pick me up. I get released, and I'm thinking, okay, there's going to be a hold on me. I'm not going to go anywhere. I got released. I got let go. And so I get in the car with my mom and dad, and my dad's like, hey, Mark, check it out. Look, you got to do the right thing, man. You got released early. The FBI doesn't even know it. Now, normally, I know most people would say run, but it'd probably be in your best interest to call them and let them know you got released early. And I'm telling you, it's going to go in your favor. And then I'm like, God, Dad, I don't want to do that. I don't want to call them and tip them off. And I don't know, so I'm having mixed emotions. So I call them. So I call the actual agent that arrested me. And I said, hey, Agent Dales, I said, so I got released early. He's like, whoa, really? Wow. And he was very taken back. He goes, you know what? This is pretty incredible. He goes, you're actually calling me and telling me you got released. He goes, I wouldn't have expected that. And he says, you know what? Because of that. And I said, do I need to turn myself in? And he says, no, you know what? Go home with your family. And he goes, and we'll be in touch. And then if about 7 days goes by, somewhere around there, and then the agent calls me and he says, all right, Mark, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to trust you that you're going to turn yourself in. He goes, I think you're a good guy. He goes, I know you made some mistakes. And I just need you to do one thing. Turn yourself in tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. And he goes, please don't run. He goes, you'll make it really, really bad for yourself if you run or if you don't show up. I said, I give you my word, I'll be there. Next day, I'm not only there, I'm early. And they were surprised. They were like, wow. He said, thanks a lot for, for doing this, for keeping your word. And so I guess because I kept my word and because I had, turned the laser in and all that, cooperated with them, and, as far as that goes, they ended up letting me out on a bond. I was shocked. I didn't think for 1 minute I was going to get out on a bond. I thought for sure I was going to be remanded into federal custody. And they said, see, this is how it works, Mark. Look, you didn't go hard on us. We're not going to go hard on you. This is a bad case, yeah, but it's not the worst case. He goes, we got a lot of other things going on around the country right now, here in California. Yes, you did something really bad, but we're going to trust that you're not going to run. And I'm like, hell no, I'm not going to run. I said, I just want to get this over with. I just want to face it and get it over with. I take full responsibility. I was wrong. And the judge didn't want to let me out. She was like she was real adamant. She did not want to let me out. And then my attorney, who did such a great job, he kept arguing. He said, look, he's got family ties. He's never ran before. He turned himself in. He's got a job. He's at home with his parents. His parents are elderly. They need him. And man, a miracle happened. And that judge says, oh my God, I don't know why I'm doing this. And she's like, okay, but check it out. You're going to be on an ankle monitor. You're going to be on house arrest. And she just laid the law down on me. So I ended up getting out on a $10,000 bond.
So, I mean, it's not that serious of a case. You're not really facing that much time. You end up copping out, right? How much time are you facing?
So, yeah. So I guess the max is 10 years, but right now, the PSR report that I got back, they're asking for anywhere from 27 months to 33 months, ran concurrent.
You were kind of a little bit nervous. That's when you reached out to me to ask me, about, what the feds are like, where you might end up going. You reached out to some other prison consultants. They want to charge you $10,000-15,000 just to tell you a couple answers, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Just to write a narrative or just for some advice. I was like, what? I'm like, $7,500, $10,000, really? Huh. Yeah.
And I answered your questions for free.
Yeah, exactly. He sure did.
Interview, of course, right?
Right.
So listen, man, hopefully things work out for you. The judge doesn't necessarily have to send you to prison. I doubt you're going to get banged. You're probably end up, worst case scenario, probably 24 months. I mean, no one wants to go to prison. No one wants to do, any time. 1 day away from your family is too much.
Right.
But you know what, man? You got another shot at getting out, man. You got to learn to appreciate your freedom, though, right?
Definitely. Yeah, I'm too old for this. I'm almost 49. This is crazy. This is not cool.
Living with your parents or no?
Yeah, I'm with my parents still. I'm looking out for them because they're 74 and 75 years old. They need me. They're getting up there, and they've got some health issues, and that's one of my arguments for the judge. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out what am I going to say to this judge? What kind of speech am I going to give him? And the letter that I have to write to him. And I was hoping for probation, but I know I'm not expecting that to happen. I know the odds are against me, but it's based on the fact that I've been out since March of last year, and I know a lot of guys have been out for years and still went to prison, but I'm just trying to show a different side of me, just that I can really do this. I can make it out here. I'm working, I'm paying my taxes. I'm not getting in any more trouble. I know I could be doing better, and I will be doing better. So I'm just hoping and praying. That's why I've been watching all your podcasts, your videos. I mean, you've really helped me tremendously. I've learned a lot through all the fellas that you've known throughout your incarceration, a lot of the experiences. I mean, it's a great show that you provide. You know, I'm really grateful for it.
Well, listen, man, I appreciate you coming on. Anything you want to say before we get ready to go?
I just want to say to anybody out there, that's watching this, hey, you know what? Please, whatever you do, think before you act. Make sure that if you're on parole, if you're on probation, or if you're not on either one of those things and you're thinking about doing something, believe me, think twice. It's not worth it. Get a relapse prevention plan. Get accountability. Find people that will hold you accountable, family, friends. Call them right away. Swallow your pride, swallow your ego. That's what I didn't do, and look where I am. So I'm just hoping that nobody else goes through what I'm going through and waste their life like I did. I'd love to see everybody thrive and do great.
Well, listen, man, again, I appreciate you coming on. I'm going to tell people, man, if you like what we're doing, hit that like button. And, just before we go, let me say this, right? Like I said earlier, man, prison is a dangerous place, especially that California prison system. And the other thing is this, sometimes when you go to prison young, like we talk about, a lot of times you don't always grow mentally, you grow physically. So prison's definitely not the place to be. With respect, Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Until tomorrow, we're out.